Hi, my name is Julie Baird, and this is my Capstone Project. For this project, I changed the arrangement of the fiction collection at the Bonneville High School Library from one that was arranged traditionally by the Dewey Decimal Classification System for fiction to one where the books are now shelved according to genre. This is a picture of the Bonneville High School Library where I work. It's a busy place. Students come for various reasons, homework help, to use the computers, and of course, to hang out with their friends or find something to read. The single most often asked question is, where can I find fill in the blank kind of books? In order to assist students to become more independent library browsers, it was determined that changing to a system where the books were arranged by genre rather than simply by the last name of the author would help the students to become more independent in finding books that they enjoy. And in turn, that would help them to want to read more. The administration at my school was very supportive in this project, even though they knew it was somewhat controversial. There are a lot of libraries around the country who are changing to this type of system, but there are also just that many or more who want to stay with the traditional way. But we decided for the type of student user at our school and the way that they use the internet so much to ask Google or Siri every single day where to find something, that if we could shift the way the library was arranged, that perhaps it would be easier for them with the way they currently search most other topics. The library committee consists of myself. I'm pictured with the blonde hair on the right, and my assistant, Becca, on the left. And we had a number of student aides who did not want to have their picture taken or their names be included. But we had between 4 and 6 aides helping at different periods with different parts of this project. And really, they were wonderful workhorses. I could not have completed this project without the help of everyone involved. In general, after removing a number of books from the library collection that were outdated or obsolete, I ended up with about 10,000 books in our library collection, which is a respectable number for the size of school that we are, almost equally divided between fiction and nonfiction. Since the fiction section was the section that we were really trying to focus on, we determined that we would focus on that 5,000 books in the fiction section to change them by genre rather than how some libraries have combined the fiction and nonfiction sections. I feel like it's really important to delineate between fiction and nonfiction, especially in high school, and for the different purposes in which students come to the library to find something to read or to find help with school assignments. So for this project, we focused on the 5,000 books in the fiction section. There was a process involved, but these are the basic steps. We were going to determine the categories that we were going to use. There are not preset categories that are similar all across the world. We determined which ones would be most helpful in our library based upon the books that we had, the students who would be using them, and the kinds of questions that students ask us each day about what kind of books they're looking for. This involves moving all of the books to new areas. We needed a different arrangement. It was confusing the way the nonfiction and fiction books were just simply shelved in the areas of the library, and we needed to move them around. So we shifted the entire 10,000 books to new areas so that the flow is better, so students could find things more easily and understand the differences between the fiction section and the nonfiction section. We assigned each book to a genre within our library management system. We also had to determine and put those in our LMS as well. Each genre was determined a color that would be color coded for all the books, so that when you looked at the books from another part of the library, you would know that this was a new section because the spine labels had a new color. We would also, after that was done, need to determine how many shelves were needed for each new section, and new signage would need to be made. And also we would need to train new library users in order to help them understand the new system as well. So the genre categories that we chose were fantasy, science fiction, paranormal and horror, mystery, realistic fiction, relationships and romance, historical fiction, adventure and suspense, sports, and classics. We also have smaller sections of graphic novels and picture books and books in other languages and biographies that are not part of either this fiction genreification project and or the nonfiction section. They have their own sections in the library for ease of use and for categorizing them. The biggest, most sweaty part of this job was actually moving the books. So like I said before, we needed to completely shift the fiction and nonfiction books. We also, when moving books in the library, it's kind of tricky. You need to determine the number of books that can actually fit on a specific shelf, and not all fiction sections are the same thickness as nonfiction books. So that was a process, just one cart at a time, trying to move books to new areas in order to open up an area in order to categorize it. One of the unforeseen benefits of this process was that I had to physically handle almost every single book on my own, and I was able to get to know the collection in a way that I would not normally have done for quite a long time, which as a librarian I feel is invaluable. I was new to this school. This is only my second year at this particular library, and where last year we were closed in March for the COVID shutdown, it made it really difficult to actually know all of the books that were in my library. And so this project and was a happy one, and this side effect was really quite fortunate for me. It helps me to know what I have a lot better, and I'm able to order books, I think, better because of it. Once books were pulled from the shelf, the fiction ones, each book needed to be assigned to a sublocation. Within our library management system, there isn't necessarily a genre field. There is a section, however, where we can add a sublocation. So I predetermined and created those sublocations based on the decisions that we had made. But each book, as it was pulled, the barcode would need to be scanned, the sublocation would need to be chosen. And sometimes that was a tricky process. There's a lot of books that cross over genres, or they're really a combination of genres. And so we needed to often discuss as a library committee, if there was a question that I had, I wasn't quite sure, how I felt about a particular title, or it was, some alternate history, zombie romance, and where in the world do you put that? And so we would have to ask ourselves the question of what kind of reader would enjoy this book, and what kind of reader would it be searching for this kind of book, and what books do they typically want to use. And so we would answer that question if it wasn't readily apparent through the record that was already attached to the book in the library management system, or what we already knew of the book, or And sometimes we'd often check other review websites as well to see what others had said. But it was quite a process. And although sometimes it was fairly quick and straightforward, there were books that I would have to set aside for a few days to kind of ponder over and decide what to do. Once a book was assigned to a specific genre, they were also um, labeled with a colored spine label. Now, traditionally, um, there's just a white spine label with the call number that tells a user where to find the book on the shelf. Well, when we were applying these spine labels, we wanted it to be easy for students to identify a particular section just based on the color, that after a certain amount of time that they would be comfortable just saying, oh yes, that green spine label means that it's science fiction, or the pinkish purple color means that it's relationships and romance. So that was our thinking behind that. It also would help our student aides being able to shelve them correctly so that they were not getting confused. The colors needed to be distinct and different enough from each other that they would be able to quickly sort and shelve books. We purchased these labels from Demco. They were not inexpensive, but I feel like it was a good investment. Um, Overall, it was a minimal expense considering the other things that I sometimes have to spend money on. We felt like this was a good investment for what we needed it to do, and are easily removed if we change our mind and need to readjust where we've assigned a book. Once all of the books were categorized, we had just been putting them back onto the shelf in alphabetical order in order to facilitate moving through the shelves. But now they needed to find their new homes. So as you can see in the picture, the green spine labels, again, I'm just took some pictures of the science fiction section. We needed to determine how many books to put on a shelf, how many shelves were needed for the number of books that we had in that section. Our library management system has a wonderful report system, in that I was able to run a list that told me exactly how many books were in each genre at this point, which made it much simpler to determine how many shelves I would actually need for each section. And new signage is always key in order to help library users find what they need to find. So we designed new signage in order to help students find their way. And I will just quickly play this video so you can see the new signage. Fairly straightforward. The colors of the signs correspond with the stickers for that particular genre. I wanted students to be able to see from a glance as they came through the door of the library what section they wanted to head towards in order to find what they wanted to read or browse. And I think these signs have done that. It's been helpful. So the next step was training the students in the library, both the library staff and the library students, as they would come in to find new books. I made a training video that is embedded in my Canvas courses for the library. So this particular one is just a basic overview of what genres are, and I will play it for you. Another thing that I used to help library users was this genre personality quiz. I found it on Teachers Pay Teachers. I modified it for the students in my library, but each student group that would come in for library orientation, part of that orientation would be to take this personality quiz, which they enjoyed quite a lot. And we were able to talk about the different parts of their personalities and how sometimes they are interested in reading different kinds of books. And so this was one way to help them determine the different areas that they might be interested in browsing when checking out a book from the library. Some of the challenges that were part of this project, this is a picture of my workspace, my personal office in the library, and it looked like this for a really long time, and it was very chaotic, and I would, be bringing books in, running lists, trying to do my other tasks, as well as categorizing things. And in general, you can see the bright green book cards in the background of this picture are always were full of books for weeks that we were, pulling and scanning and assigning and restickering, and then we would attempt to pull things back out. But I think probably just the overwhelming chaos at times and the feeling like, wow, is this ever going to be put back together? I think one of the personality traits of most people who go into library work is that we enjoy an organized space. So this was really difficult for me. However, the results have been really positive as we were prior to the genreification process. I needed to pull a lot of books that were outdated, and that continued while we were pulling books. We found things that we had multiple copies of that hadn't been checked out for a long time, or maybe parts of a series that were old and outdated, covers that were ugly that obviously were not going to attract students. And we removed those books from our system, and we had a book swap over the Christmas holiday, well, right before Christmas, so that students could take books home and add them to their personal collections, which everyone enjoyed. And the administration was very appreciative of. I do live or work in an area that has some underprivileged students and that probably wouldn't be able to afford to buy a lot of books. So this was a benefit to having the rearrangement, was with being able to identify books that I could give away to students. Also, students are currently enjoying finding new books in their favorite genres, and they also have reported that they enjoy just the browsing process more. They like to just see what's there now that they are not intimidated by trying to just find something that was familiar or that they liked. Now that they've been able to identify some genres that they enjoy, they like to just go through the shelves and look at different things and try new books, which is wonderful. Part of the joys of teaching them what libraries have to offer them. It's just the joy of browsing. One of the added benefits that I didn't necessarily go into this project looking for, where I found very weak areas of the collection that needed to be strengthened and bolstered. And so I've been focusing new purchases on those sections so that they can be more helpful to students who enjoy those types of books, rather than continually purchasing more fantasy, for example, because that seems to be far and away the heaviest area of our collection. And there are other areas that needed attention. We also identified that there were a couple of sections that needed to be, the color of stickers needed to be changed because they were too close together, too closely related to another sticker color. And it was confusing for my student aides when they were reshelving. So I have ordered new stickers, and we will be changing those out as soon as those stickers arrive. What's next? Well, this project will never end, or at least it won't end as long as I'm the librarian at this school, or there is a edict from my administration that I need to go back to the regular Dewey Decimal System. Every time I order books, I need to go through the same process for each book that's ordered that's a fiction book. And it's really one that it does take a little bit of extra time when I am processing books, but I think it's worth it. Uh, I have a number of book promotions that I do through the school. Sometimes they are, focused on a specific genre, but one that I do ongoing is called Reading on the Potty, which entitles it's a poster essentially of the book cover of a new book and a description of the book. And down at in the footer area, I have added a hashtag with the genre that helps students to locate those books when they come into the library and say, hey, I saw a Reading on the Potty book. I think it's this, but I know it's in science fiction. Can you help me? And that makes it a lot easier to find the book that they're looking for, because sometimes they just remember the cover or they remember a couple of words. So in order to have the genre at the bottom has helped all of us to find the book that they're looking for. I have loved doing this project. I feel like it is really representative of all of the things that I've learned while completing this MIS degree. I have used the skills that I have learned in my school library courses, along with the ones I've learned in my online teaching courses, and have been able to use both of them and combine them into what I hope is a successful project. Thank you for your time.